So my presentation is about how parents can help support teens through their adolescence. Teenagers are often labeled as rebellious or disruptive, but there are always reasons as to why people act the way they do, and teenagers are no different. Obviously, teenagers and parents fight, that's nothing new. But I believe the reason why they fight is because there's not enough communication happening between a teenager and parent. And they act out because they feel like they don't have anyone they can talk to. So whatever the reason teenagers act out, it's up to the parents to be there to support them through their adolescence. And the best way to help is to be mindful of the changes their kids are going through. Adolescence brings a lot of change. Teens suddenly find themselves in new waters and they have no idea how to navigate them. And that can lead to teenagers acting out because they feel like maybe this is the way they need to act. But parents need to have a strong role in their teens' life to help guide them to become more independent adults. And so this presentation will focus on different strategies parents can use to talk to their growing teens and open up those lines of communication. So first, we're going to talk about which parenting technique can help increase communication, and I believe that technique is the authoritative parenting style. Like I said, teens usually feel like they can't talk to either their parents or to other people, which causes them to act out. So authoritative parenting can help counteract that by opening up lines of communication between the teen and their parent. So authoritative parenting, as defined in Adolescence by Steinberg, is when parents use warmth, firm control, and rational, issue-oriented discipline in which emphasis is placed on self-direction. This is where parents set standards they know their children can achieve, which is different from authoritarian parenting, where they set unreasonable standards for their children, which can be very damaging to their mental health and their mindset. Authoritative parenting is a balance of allowing their children autonomy while still helping them to shape their behavior to become independent adults. So we want to be authoritative parents. We want to be able to encourage our teenagers' independence, but still let them know that we're there for them, to be a guide for them. And I believe that a lot of problems that teenagers face can be resolved by just talking to them, making sure they feel like they're heard. And some benefits of authoritative parenting is that adolescents are more mature, responsible, self-assured, creative, curious, socially skilled, and academically successful, which of course is what we want our children to be, because one day our children will be without us, so we want to make sure we give them the right tools so they can become independent and live a good life, even though we might not always be in the picture for them. So an example that I can think of where we don't have good lines of communication with our teenager is when our teenager talks back to us, and parents usually just shut it down because back talk is typically seen as disrespectful or frustrating, because when people get angry, we get illogical. We don't want to hear things. We just want to get all of our angry feelings out. We want to feel like our teen hears us. But on the flip side, the teen needs to also feel like that we are being heard by them. So we have to see that back talk is not necessarily bad, but it's actually a combination of the teen's ability to think counterfactually. So they're developing their cognitive skills as well as exploring their emotional autonomy. So we first know our children as babies and children are not exactly the most logical or reasonable of people. But suddenly when our children become teens, they are suddenly able to understand logic. They can understand reason. So we need to understand that when a teen talks back, it's not always out of disrespect. Sometimes they actually want to talk about why you're so angry, or they want to defend themselves. And it's important not just to shut them down. We need to feel like we can hear them, and then maybe take away this yelling match and put in place an actual conversation. And conversations are so important because people need to feel like they're being heard. And that's why we shouldn't shut down back talking. Also, teens are developing their emotional autonomy, which means they're slowly making more adult-like relationships with family and peers, and they're becoming less childlike. And I know that's hard for parents to grasp sometimes because, like I said, we still see our teenagers as babies, but they're not. I mean, they're not quite adults, but they're not quite children anymore either. So we need to be able to guide them. So although it might be frustrating to deal with back talk, it's actually a good sign that your child is growing up to be independent. Strive to make sure that your teenagers can talk to you without fear of being shut down, without fear of you becoming angry, and let them know that it's okay that they're slowly not becoming children anymore and they're slowly becoming adults. But always keep in mind that we have to be there for them as they try to navigate this change. Because like I said before, they're not adults, but they're not children either. So we need to be able to support that very slow process of them becoming to adults. And that starts with letting them know that they can talk to us and we can see them as someone that's not quite a child anymore, not quite an equal, but respect that they are growing up and that they are gaining more autonomy so that they can become more independent adults. So another common problem that might inhibit communication between teen and parents are screens. And as everybody knows, people are addicted to screens, and it seems like teenagers are the most addicted. And, well, the big question is why? And is it good for them to be addicted to their screens? Well, obviously it's not good for children to be addicted to anything. If a child spends too much time on their screen, increased screen time has been correlated to insomnia and obesity, because the amount of time a child or a teenager spends on a screen displaces that time that they could use for physical activity to keep them in shape, or will keep them up at night when they're browsing through social media when they should be sleeping. Obviously, screens can also inhibit communication between a parent and a teenager because a teenager just wants to be on their screen. But taking away technology is not always the answer to help increase those lines of communication between a teen and a parent, because actually taking screen time away completely can lead to a decrease of mental health, which of course is just as bad as a decrease as physical health. So how can parents use screen time as a tool for them? And here are some ideas that I have. So obviously, using your screen in moderation is key. There are a lot of studies that show that using screens in moderation can help improve mental health, because then teens have an outlet for stress that they have in school. It encourages communication between their friends, which is good because it's important that teens feel heard. So some ideas that parents could try to moderate screen time is to not have screens on during dinner. So no phones or TV while having dinner. So it encourages conversation between the family, and it helps with family bonding. Also, another great way to use screens is to have family movie night and watch a movie with your family and then talk about the movie after. You can help get to know your child better by seeing how they view the movie, and how encouraging them to talk about their opinions will help them later in life, because then they can then they don't feel pressure to say things what everybody else wants them to. They feel empowered by having their own opinions. So instead of seeing electronics as this great evil, instead see them as tools that can bring you and your teen closer if used properly. And then obviously, if none of these tactics work for encouraging your teen to talk to you, please don't give up. It's so important that when your teen is ready to talk to you, that you're there for them, you're ready to listen to them, you're ready to give them advice, you're ready to be a guide to them. It's just a matter of when. So please, and then of course, if none of these techniques or advice was helpful, please use your research to find ways for your teen to open up to you, because you're obviously going to know your teen best. And so it's so important that you feel like you are listening to your teen, and it's important for your teen to feel like that they are being listened by you. So thank you, and I hope you found this presentation helpful.